Tonight, another star passenger on the tube, but a very different reaction. We told you last week about the singer Rihanna, who travelled underground to her concert at the O2, and she was mobbed by fans who spotted her. Now it's known that the Prime Minister, David Cameron, also took the tube recently because it was quicker than going by car. But judging by the reaction of one passenger, he is no Rihanna. Toby Sadler explains.
There is something really familiar about that guy in the blue tie. But when Sanyogita Maya bumped into him on the Jubilee line, she wasn't quite sure what that was or why he was complimenting her baby, Syama.
He stood by a little distance, and then I asked my husband, I'm like, who's he complimenting Syama? And I didn't feel bad, but I was just curious. And then my husband said, it's the Prime Minister. I'm like, no, don't joke. And then he's like, no, he's the Prime Minister.
Not fully convinced it was the PM, Sanyogita asked the man himself.
And then I looked at Mr. David Cameron, and I looked at him and I'm like, excuse me? He's like, yeah. And then I said, are you the Prime Minister? And then he said, yes. And he smiled at me. And I'm like, oh, well, sorry. And I made, I don't know how many faces. And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry.
Now, of course, any self-respecting commuter knows that when you go on the tube, you don't look at anyone and you certainly don't speak to anyone. You'd have thought that David Cameron would have learned from Prime Ministers past, as back in 1999, Tony Blair took the tube to the Dome with embarrassing consequences. Mr. Blair certainly looked a little nervous on public transport, even when he was recognised. But it was his interaction, or lack thereof, with Georgina Leketi-Solomon which went down in history. He tried talking to her, but in true commuter fashion, she ignored him. Other famous faces on the tube have fared better. Earlier this month, singer Rihanna took to the underground, much to the delight of her fans. She was off to her gig at the O2. A publicity stunt, perhaps, but what about David Cameron? Is he a genuine commuter?
Yeah, I asked him that what's the purpose of this travel. So he said he has to reach somewhere and he has a very busy schedule for the day, and this is the fastest way he can reach.
If you'd like to see the Prime Minister on the tube, you'll need the District, Circle or Jubilee line. His stop, Westminster, of course. Toby Sadler, London Tonight.